Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Ren Monk. I am your host, Javen Takar. Thank you so much for choosing me to be your voice of whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode, of course, here of the NFL Divisions Record Predictions, whatever you want to call it. So we're continuing this series here. If you haven't been keeping track, we've got 4 videos already up and running if you want to go check those out. Talking about the NFC and AFC, what did we do? We did the North and the NFC AFC South. So go check those out after you finish watching this one, because it doesn't really matter exactly what order you go in, of course, because it's not a numbered series or whatever. But anyways, you read the title, you read the title, the description, whatever you read to get here. And we're talking about the NFC East today. The NFC East is a very interesting division with some young teams that are just battling for a spot. They're battling for a spot to outshine the 2 powerhouses in this division. And obviously, I think you guys know who we're talking about. If we're talking about the NFC East, there's 2 teams that are far and ahead above the other 2 teams. And we're going to go on ahead and talk about one of those other teams first, of course, starting from bottom to top. Starting things off with the New York Giants. This is going to be a very bad football team, I'm telling you right now. I've got them slotted at 2-15. I believe that they're going to be the number 1 overall pick. I want to say that is the number 1 overall pick. That is, 2-15. Pretty far and away the worst team in the league, and I think that it is a fitting title. It's a fitting title. This is a roster with little to no talent. You lost your best player. You lost Saquon Barkley. You traded for some good guys, picking up Brian Burns, but that's pretty much about it. Brian Burns is a great player. Pairing him alongside Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence on that D line, you're gonna get some sacks, sure. But let a team start darting up that secondary, quick passes, then you're screwed. Speaking of the secondary, I really do think it's a very sorry secondary. You've got Adoree Jackson, who's a solid, snacky veteran, but then the rest of this unit is very young and unproven, and kind of a lot of question marks surrounding them. Deonte Banks, he could be good, but still young, still early to tell. The rookie Andrew Phillips, I think he goes by Drew Phillips. He's going to be, I liked him. He was a 3rd round pick. I liked him coming in. I think, again, he's young, still needs some time to develop, still needs, he's not going to be, you can put him out there and feel comfortable with teams targeting him. And then the safety unit is maybe one of the worst in the league with Dane Belton and Jason Pinnock, and also the rookie Tyler Nubin, who was the 2nd round pick. Also, again, a fan of him. I think that you can feel a little bit more comfortable with him starting day 1, but not a game changer, really. It's hard to be a game changer as a safety. Of course, you also got Bobby Okereke, who I think is a very good linebacker. But all in all, this defensive unit is going to get dotted up and tagged up. It's going to be very ugly out there for the New York Giants. But offensively, maybe it's somehow worse than the defense. Putting out Daniel Jones out there, you paid the big contract for him, and he does not look like he was worth it at all. And I get it now with the quarterback market. Nowadays, it kind of looks like a decent contract, but also he looks like a guy that you should very well be moved upon. He should not be the starting quarterback week 1 for the New York Giants at this moment. If you didn't pay that big contract, you could have drafted a quarterback last year. You could have drafted a quarterback 2 years. You could have gotten out of this situation before it got out of hand. Well, now it's out of hand, and you have to deal with the repercussions here. Yes, I think that Malik Neighbors was a really good pick at number 6. I think that he's a very talented receiver, but it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough to get that ball to him with Daniel Jones and this horrendous offensive line. So let's go more into their draft class. So we mentioned Taylor Nubin and Andrew Phillips. Of course, we just touched on Malik Neighbors. Again, I think that he has potential to be the best receiver in this class. It all just depends on how this New York Giants offense can utilize him. I also really liked Theo Johnson, who was their round 4 pick, tight end, and then Tyrone Tracy, who is going to have to have a role on this team with how sorry this run game is. The run game, they picked up Devin Singletary in free agency. I really don't see him as a running back 1 in this point in his career. He's a solid RB. I think that you probably got to run some sort of committee here with Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. I think Tracy can also be a good receiving back. You also picked up Drew Lock. We want to make Daniel Jones a little uncomfortable there, I guess. And then Isaiah McKenzie. I mean, this free agency class is not the greatest thing in the world. No Saquon Barkley. This receiving class, this receiving unit is, of course, Malik Neighbors. You got Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. It's just okay. It's not great, just okay. And it's going to be enough to win you 2 games this season. And speaking of which, let's hop right into the game by game. Week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. That's going to be a loss. And then in week 2, you got a division opponent, the Washington Commanders. I actually got them getting a win in this one on the road. So there you are. Commanders, sorry about that, but it's okay. We'll get to y'all in a bit. And then, so yes, the Giants, they're going to win that game week 2. They're going to be 1-1, and then lose every single game up until week 14. I have them upsetting the New Orleans Saints, because I also think the Saints are bad. If you want to know what I think about the Saints, you can go check out the NFC East video there, or the NFC South, sorry. And those are going to be the only 2 wins against the Commanders on the road and then the Saints in week 14. Everything else is just going to be a loss. And, you know, they got to play teams like the Baltimore Ravens, the Atlanta Falcons, the Philadelphia Eagles twice, of course, the Dallas Cowboys twice. So it's going to be tough for them to really try to separate themselves and steal a few wins. And I really don't think that this is the type of team to have that heart in them to fight and be scrappy, like I think that the Commanders will be, which I think is a great segue to head over to talk about the Washington Commanders sitting in 3rd place in this division. I think that they're going to be a scrappy team that could steal some games. I've got them listed at 6-11. I also think that this is like their floor. I think, or I would say maybe their floor is between maybe 4. Maybe they can steal even 8 wins. So I think between that could be the Commanders' record. The Commanders are going to start off a little bit slow, going 0-3, and then winning their first game in week 4 against the Arizona Cardinals. Those first 3 losses coming to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 1, the Giants, as I just mentioned, and then the Cincinnati Bengals in week 3. But then, taking out the Arizona Cardinals on the road. Now, this Commanders team made some interesting moves this offseason. So, they had the 2nd overall pick, and everybody pretty much knew that they were going to take a quarterback. So, I feel like they really quarterback-proofed their team, except for receivers. Why? I feel like the receiver would have been really important to bulk up on, but no, they really didn't. They have Terry McLaurin, and they're happy with him. Which, yes, McLaurin is a great receiver, but I mean, you gotta have more than him. You know, I would like to see him snag somebody else. They are pretty much looking like a retirement home right now. They signed Bobby Wagner, of course, getting to the latter half of his career. Austin Eckler, who is widely regarded as a very washed running back. And then Zach Ertz, which I just totally did not know about until researching for this video. Yeah, Zach Ertz is on their depth chart on ESPN. He's listed as their tight end 1. Zach Ertz in the big 2024, folks. They also picked up Jeremy Chin and Frankie Louvu, both former Carolina Panthers. I think those are pretty good pickups. Tyler Biadasz as center. I like him. He's a very good young center. Cleenan Farrell, and then recently Noah Brown. Oh, there you go. There's your receiver for Mr. Jaden Daniels, who we haven't even mentioned yet. But yeah, actually, let's dive into that draft class, because I think they have a really good draft class with Jaden Daniels, and then also Jazern or Johnny Newton. I don't know exactly what he goes by. In the 2nd round, he was a really good pickup. He's a first-round type talent, so I think that Newton was a really good pickup. They also got Ben Sinnott, tight end, and then Luke McCaffrey. Again, there you go. Building up that receiver core for Jaden Daniels. Absolutely. So I think that they drafted some young, fun guys. I think Daniels is going to be really explosive in the league. And they also signed Marcus Mariota, who, again, similar to Jaden Daniels, I see the similarities for sure. So he'll be a good mentor. And Daniels is presumably the future. But this O-line is not the greatest thing in the world, and neither is the receiving core. So this offense, I think, is going to struggle. Defensively, though, there is some pieces. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and now throwing Johnny Newton into the mix there. It's a really good interior D-line. And so I'm looking forward to seeing those guys on the field. They also got, again, Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner sitting at the linebacker position. Their secondary is young, but they could be a little scrappy. They might have their times. Benjamin St. Juste is a very underrated cornerback. Emmanuel Forbes is kind of struggling for a roster spot, it seems like. So I feel really bad for Forbes, but I definitely hope that he can find some footing in the league. But yeah, he definitely was just drafted a little too high. But that's on the Commanders' fault. Michael Davis, Mike Sinastro, who's a rookie that came in out of Michigan, I believe. And so yeah, overall, like this, it's just kind of a meh secondary. I don't think it's one of the best in the league. I don't think it. I think it's a little below average. But overall, I think that the D line is going to be able to get more pressure compared to like the Giants, who have a very bad secondary. I think that they have a better secondary than the Giants, no doubt about it. But yeah, this is a team that has a bright future building around Jaden Daniels. I would have really liked if they could have pulled the trade off with a Brandon Ayuk. That would have been really, really nice. I would have liked to see them get a veteran receiver. I don't really know what receivers are still out there, but I'm sure there's some guys that they could go and pick up just to bolster up this this receiving core. So I'm looking up some free agents, wide receivers right now. Let's take a look at who is still available, because I would like to see this team pick up, and so we're doing some live scouting here for you guys. Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, I think, is going to be a very fun connection. They've also got Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, who I guess, Eckler, he has that pass catching ability. Is he going to be able to stay on the field? As we know, he is not in his prime at all, not even close to it. All right, so let's take a look here. Receivers, free agent receivers. All right, so still available receivers. We have Hunter Renfrow is still out there, so I think that could be a nice pickup. Michael Thomas was just released by the Saints. I do believe that he was suspended, but he might be able to be a solid pickup for the Commanders there. Other than that, yeah, it is actually it's a pretty sorry pool of players here. So yeah, maybe there really is nobody worth going out there and picking up. Willie Snead, I guess, maybe. But okay, so yeah, okay, sorry Commanders. But there you have it. So overall, I think the Commanders, I've got them going 6-11, and let's dive into those game by game. So we left off week 4, winning against the Arizona Cardinals, and then I've got them losing to the Browns and the Ravens back to back. Those are some tough teams. Beating the Carolina Panthers in week 7, losing to the Bears. I think that'll be a fun matchup, though. Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels. That might be it's going to be a high scoring game or a low scoring game. We'll see how those rookies do. And then beating the Giants. Of course, they're going to sweep the Giants. And then losing to the Steelers and the Eagles back-to-back, but then going on a 2-game win streak, beating the Cowboys. Yes, I have them upsetting the Cowboys, because the Cowboys are just one of those teams that lose to inferior opponents at least once or twice a season. So I think that the Commanders get the best out of the Cowboys in week 12, and then also beating up on the Titans, heading into the week 14 bye week, coming out of the bye week with a loss to the Saints. That's when I could definitely see flipped. The Commanders, if they come out of the bye week prepared and healthy, again, I could see that being, and then them going 7-10. I've also got them beating the Philadelphia Eagles in week 16 here. Again, they're a scrappy team, and it's tough. It's tough to beat division rivals. It's tough to sweep them. But yes, I've got the Eagles losing week 16 to the Commanders. I think that's not super crazy. I think the Commanders are going to have some fight in them, and then losing their last 2 games to the Falcons, and then of course the Cowboys. So yeah, there's a season of the Commanders taking out some good teams, taking out some winning teams, taking out of course the Cowboys and the Eagles. They're a scrappy team. I think that they're going to have some fight in them, and we'll see how head coach Dan Quinn does with this team. It's a team of fun young guns and some old vets that are going to help lead this team to those tougher opponents, to those wins. And speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, I've got them in second place here. So the Dallas Cowboys, I've got them in second place. I know a lot of people don't love the Cowboys, but I mean, at the end of the day, they're the Cowboys. They're going to dominate in the regular season and then lose in the playoffs. It's the Cowboy way. So let's talk about them. Their draft, I think, was just okay. They got Tyler Guyton in the first round, who I wasn't the biggest fan of, but he actually looked really good in the preseason. So I might have to eat my words on him. Marshawn Kneeland, who I think was more of a project type edge rusher. I really didn't like what I saw of him. He just seemed like he was just trying to use his size and bull rush, but I don't think it's going to work in the NFL. So we'll see how he can develop. And then Cooper Beebe, who was an offensive lineman that I really like that they picked up, I believe, in the 3rd round there. So I think the Cowboys had a pretty solid draft. Nothing great, but okay. They got some solid pieces. They bought Ezekiel Elliott back in the running game. They of course lost Tony Pollard, and just recently they signed Dalvin Cook. So they have a really good running back unit if we were back in the year 2015, 2016. Maybe I guess 2016 was what Zeke's rookie year. But back in the day, a couple of years ago, this would have been a really good running back unit. But boy, nowadays this is sorry. This is a sorry unit. The run game is really not going to be there, which is why paying CeeDee Lamb was so important. So they paid CeeDee Lamb the big bucks. Finally, I don't know why they waited so long and tarnished that reputation. Seemingly, maybe not. Maybe there's no hard feelings there. But you knew that you were going to have to pay CeeDee Lamb. I mean, if he was gone, then this offense is one of the worst in the league. So I don't know why you had to wait so long to pay CeeDee Lamb the contract that you were probably going to pay him anyways. Next up is going to be Dak Prescott's contract, because I don't know if the Cowboys want to risk it and go for a complete rebuild. And because you're already paying CeeDee Lamb this big bucks, but you also are in a position where if you wanted to blow it up after the season, you probably could. Overall, I think that you should just pay Dak Prescott. Yes, he hasn't bought this team, a very good playoff success, but at the end of the day, you're winning consistently, and I think that Dak Prescott is one of the top end quarterbacks in this league. He's, at least top 15. So take that as you will. Very quiet free agency. I mean, what are we doing, Dallas? What are we doing, Jerry Jones? Very quiet free agency. They picked up, I think, Eric Kendricks was their biggest signing, unless if you want to count Zeke or Dalvin Cook. Just a bad offseason for the Dallas Cowboys. They're all over the place. I have them at a good record. I think that they could be worse than this. They might go 10-7. I have them sitting at 11-6. But yeah, they could definitely lose, a lot more than expected, because again, this team just feels all over the place. And Deron Bland is injured, so he's gonna miss, I believe, the entire season. But you did make a good trade for Andrew Booth, so at least you can sit comfortably with the replacement there. But let's dive into their season. So I've got them starting off beating the Cleveland Browns and the New Orleans Saints, and then losing in week 3 to the Baltimore Ravens. And then I've got them beating the Giants, losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then after that loss, beating the Detroit Lions, which I think that'll be a really fun game to see that rematch there. But Detroit, they also might come out guns blazing because of what happened last season. They might want to prove their dominance. And again, the Detroit Lions are a tough, scrappy team that can very well win that game, because that's the type of dog that they play with. They're big dogs. I'm actually more so talking myself into thinking that Detroit wins this game. So actually, I think that the Dallas Cowboys do sit at 10-7. That does seem a little more realistic. And then after that Detroit game, going into the bye week, coming out of the bye week, I have them losing to the 49ers. And then after the Niners game, beating the Falcons, beating the Eagles, losing to the Texans, losing to the Commanders, as I just mentioned, and then going on a bit of a win streak here, beating the Giants, beating the Bengals, beating the Panthers, and beating the Buccaneers. They kind of got a little bit of a break after that with some easy opponents, losing to the Eagles, and then beating the Commanders in Week 18 to cap off their season that I think is going to be a really tough season for the Dallas Cowboys. Again, I think, yes, I have them sitting at 11-6. I think that 10-7 is a little bit more realistic for them, losing that Detroit Lions game. It's just, they're just all over the place. And these offseason drama issues, they catch up with you. They catch up. Yeah, you got Dak Prescott, who wants a new contract. You're kind of, kicking the can down the road with him. CeeDee Lamb, who you kind of played with a little bit this whole offseason. Finally, you pay him the big bucks. And then it's just kind of a depleted roster that I feel like is going to struggle. But that leaves us to only one team at the top of the East. Of course, they're the beasts of the East, the Philadelphia Eagles. I do believe there's like this whole rep thing that goes on where no team in the NFC East has, repeated champions. I think that is just phony, and I think the Eagles are so far ahead, the best team in this division. And it's kind of unfair how they're so good and they still got to regain all these great players on their squad. In free agency, they signed, just one of the most talented running backs in the league, Saquon Barkley, and then a very underrated pass rusher, Bryce Huff, because they lost Hassan Reddick. So re-up with him, get Bryce Huff, get a little younger at that position there. And Mekhi Becton, who I really like him, but he's kind of out of shape. He's also playing right guard for them, which I don't think usually he's a tackle. So that'll be interesting to see how that fares out with them. And then they also traded for Jahan Dotson. Commanders, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why did you trade such a talented young receiver to the Philadelphia Eagles, a division rival? I don't get it. I don't get it from the Commanders. I mean, yes, it's great for Jahan Dotson, and Eagles fans are probably happy, but boy, goodness gracious. In the draft, Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell, the two I would say pretty unanimously the two best corners in this draft class. The Eagles with a team was a team with a very sorry secondary. They just picked up two of them. At least one of them is going to hit. And I know DeJean is dealing with some injury issues, I believe, but hey, even if DeJean can't go, you got Quidel Mitchell still. So, wow, what a draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then they also got Jalix Hunt, edge rusher, and even in the later rounds, Jeremiah Trotter, who I think is a very good middle linebacker for them. So that's a very good draft. It's a very good draft. They re-upped and they fixed their holes. The glaring hole being that secondary. So that secondary unit is going to be very nice with a lot of young folks. But you've also got your veterans there. So those young guys, Keely Ringo, Quinton Mitchell, DeJean, with Darius Slay as their mentor, like those guys could develop and be really good playing next to Darius Slay. And then at safety, you've got CJ Gardner-Johnson back, Reed Blankenship, and then James Bradbury's playing safety. But I believe he's going to be out for the season as well. So that's something to keep an eye out there. So, this secondary unit should be good. It should be good. We'll see how they play together with the new defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, and him bringing in his own little scheme that he brings in. This defense should be one of the best in the league, but again, hey, we never know until it really plays out. The defense, more talent of Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Bryce Huff, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, of course, and then those secondary fellas that I mentioned. Like, this is a very star-studded and talented roster. They just got to get it all together. We'll see how Vic Fangio can coach up this team. And then also, of course, their offense, which is maybe one of the best offenses in the league. Jalen Hurts, of course. We can't talk about the Eagles without mentioning the quarterback. Hurts is still looking to, I'm sure, for vengeance and to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You've got the very talented receiving core of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and now Jahan Dotson. Yes, Saquon Barkley, on the ground game. So that Hurts and Barkley read option is going to be dangerous. You got to pick your poison pretty much. Dallas Goedert is a very viable tight end. And then that great offensive line with Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, no Jason Kelsey, who we'll get to in just a second. Mekhi Becton was the starting right guard per ESPN, and then Lane Johnson at right tackle. So Hurts is going to be very well protected. As I just mentioned, no Jason Kelsey or Fletcher Cox. So we're heading into a new era for the Philadelphia Eagles. Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. There's also some offseason talk about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni not getting along, not being on the same page, getting into some heated arguments and such and such. I don't know how that's going to play out for the rest of the season, but if that is true and we see Hurts and Nick Sirianni going at each other's necks, that is going to hurt their chances of their games won. They also have new coordinators with, of course, Vic Fangio, as I mentioned, and Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore, who, again, he's got all these key pieces I think that he's going to be able to use and really get the best out of Hurts and Brown and Smith and Barkley and Goddard. And this O-line is going to very much help that. Going into their season, I've got them sitting at 12-5. I've got them losing their first two games, though, starting off slow, losing to the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons. I just got a feeling. that the Eagles are going to start off slow. But then going on a tear and beating the Saints, the Buccaneers. They've got an early Week 5 bye week. Coming out of the bye week, beating the Cleveland Browns, beating the Giants, beating the Bengals, beating the Jaguars, losing to the Cowboys in Week 10. That because it's in Dallas, I think it'll be a tough game to win. And then just winning other games up until Week 16, where I have the Commanders upsetting them, as I previously mentioned, and then winning out against the Cowboys in Week 17, and then beating up on the Giants in Week 18. So that's how I have the Eagles going 12-5. There's some games where you probably think that they should win, that I've got them losing. They're a very unpredictable team sometimes, and sometimes even these best super teams don't play out well. So we'll see how it goes for Philly. Overall, I think they're going to be a very good team, obviously. And yeah, that's going to wrap up the NFC East, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Run Amok. I am your host, Javen Takar. Give me a comment, head down there. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with. And while you're down there, hey, subscribe, like, and let me know what you think. Thank you very much. Check out the description as well. And check out my other social medias, where you'll find my TikTok, my Instagram, etc., etc. I appreciate you for bearing with me and sticking with me through this entire series. I will see you next episode covering the AFC East. Who's the beast of the East then? All right, folks, I'll see you then. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Run Amok. I'm your host, James Carr. Peace out.